was Dimmu Borgir with Progenies of the Great Apocalypse from Death Cult Armageddon. My name is Jason, I do not clip counters, and this is Hexes and Soldiers, Episode 4, the Thanksgiving Edition. I'd like to give some shout outs, if I could, to Kevin Smith, Marcelo Azzini, itinerant hobbyist, and that pesky thumbs down guy, girl, whoever that may be. Thank you again. I'd like to give a disclaimer, if I might, and say that this podcast will not just be about World War II stuff. I promise. So hang in there with me. I got a bunch of stuff I got to get off my chest regarding the East Front and World War II, and when that's done, I will steamroll through other things. Contrary to popular belief, my game shelves are not just filled with East Front games, and I am, in fact, a very big Napoleonics fan. I have a number of games that I adore regarding that era. That whole historical time period fascinates me, to say the least. So I'll be getting into that. And additionally, I have a fair amount of Civil War games. I got a ton of modern warfare stuff, so I'll be touching on those things eventually. But as I said, I've got a bunch of World War II and East Front stuff that I got to get off my chest. And when that is done, I will be bouncing all over the place like a rubber ball. So, what's new with me? Well, thanks for asking. But what's new with me is I had stumbled upon my YouTube channel and noticed that it was in a hell of a shape. The paint was peeling, the roof had caved in, the stairs were such that if anybody tried to enter, they would step through and break their ankles. So I've been pimping out, if you will, my YouTube channel and putting on a fresh coat of paint and making it a little more welcoming to anybody that might stop by, so feel free to do so. Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2 is no longer on the table. I have failed yet again as the invader, and I'm starting to wonder if I just suck as an invader and am brilliant as a defender, or what. Or is it just easier as a defender and an invader has somewhat of a handicap by nature? I'm not sure. Either way, the Russians held out in great fashion, and the Germans were thwarted. So, yay, Mother Russia! Finished the Bolano book, the Chilean author Bolano, his book, The Third Reich, which I went into briefly in the last show, and it was brought up by the doctor on Guns, Dice, and Butter, who, by the way, still does not have a new episode up, and it's starting to become slightly irritating. But it'll make it that much sweeter when he does post it, and that goes for Advance After Combat. Those guys are due for a new episode, but I'm sure all those people are much, much more busier than I am, so I will cut them some slack. But with the book, yeah, it was okay. Story-wise, kind of a mediocre mystery type thing with an anticlimactic end, but as I said before, it was all about the Wargame snippets and the little battle he has with a character there in the end, playing Third Reich. So that was interesting, and I'd recommend that if anybody is looking for something to read. Um, Otherwise, in case you missed it, there is a site called mapencounters.blogspot, and I highly recommend you take a peek at that. The guy is doing wonderful things when it comes to old school war games, kind of a history or catalog of games, but just take a look for yourself. There's a lot of stuff to sort through, and you won't be sorry. Also, if anybody's unaware of this, there are these little 15-minute rules, ASL rules on YouTube, and they're just 15-minute spots, and it's just a small snack regarding a rules question. If you have something you are in doubt about or don't understand, look these up because it's an easy, quick way to iron out something that, like I said, you have a question about. Also, Wargamer Brazil on YouTube. Give his channel a look. He is doing some good things with the OCS. Also, Joe Stedman. He has done a ton of reviews, and that's much appreciated. So, anybody that is curious about a game review wise, give him a try. It's a good chance he's reviewed it. And what else? Let's see. Mr. Sharp, it looks like, is taking it upon himself to set up the entire Case Blue campaign. Now, that is big board, and may have to change the channel to padded room because I'm sure he will start to lose sanity quickly if he's doing this by himself, which I believe he is. I've never set up the entire Case Blue. I set up a big scenario. I think it was the Drive for Oil or something like that. Set that thing up, and I don't know what happened, but never got around to playing it. And the layer of dust that collected on that scenario was like cake icing, and I ended up dismantling it without even going to turn into it. But needless to say, I understand what you're going through, Mr. Sharp, and hats off to you for doing that. Also, being as it is Thanksgiving, I would keep the cranberry sauce away from the map. So, in a past show, I asked, why isn't there an ASL computer game? Well, according to Mark DeCiso, or Chicho, sorry about that, Mark, he hit me up and has recommended the Squad Battle series, which apparently is designed by a John Tiller, published mostly by HPS Simulations, and ASL designers like Charlie Keebler have contributed scenarios. And you can find conversions from ASL to squad battles on fan websites such as these. If you go to hpssims.com or John Tiller, that's with two L's, software.com, you can find those. For an ASL fan, Mark recommends starting with Advance of the Reich or Red Victory, though there are also good games set around Dien Bien Phu and Vietnam as well. So thank you, Mark. Top 10, moving right along. Top 10 expensive games. Now, what are you willing to spend when it comes to a game? Apparently, people are willing to spend quite a bit. I myself have done so in the past for particular titles that command a pretty penny. Also, if you look at it like an investment, it sort of eases the pain when it comes to some of the price tags on these. But I'm going to start with number 10 and work my way up. And these are just a few of the games. I'm positive there are other games out there that have commanded similar, if not higher prices, but I only have so much time. So this is what I was able to come up with. Number 10, On to Richmond, the Civil War game by Avalon Hill. That is gone, I saw on eBay in the shrink for $295. So, On to Richmond, a steal at $295 if you can afford it. Number 9, DAC 2, same price, $295, but that was in the shrink. Number 8, Streets of Stalingrad, $350 unpunched. And these games have probably, I'm certain, gone for cheaper, but this is just a high watermark as far as prices that I have here. Number 7, Corson Pocket. That's the People's War Games with, I think, is that Jack Rady? Is his name? $356. And that was an unpunched Ziploc edition. Wasn't even in the box. And oh, do I sigh when it comes to especially Corson Pocket, but Streets of Stalingrad as well. These are two games that I have drooled over multiple times, and at some point when my rich uncle gets out of the poorhouse, I will be taking care of that. Until then, I will just have to drool. Number 6, campaign for North Africa, $362. Shrink. Number 5, ASL, A Bridge Too Far, $400. Shrink. I am a proud owner of A Bridge Too Far, so yay me. Onto Richmond as well. I have a copy of that, so I've got, what, 2 out of 5 so far. The Longest Day, the old Avalon Hill title, $405, and that was mint unpunched. I have that as well, an inherited copy from my brother. That too was unpunched. Now the box is not mint, but yeah, I have that game. $405 though is what that has gone for. Number 3, Devil's Cauldron, of which I am also a proud owner. That has gone as high as $411 mint unpunched. And I don't know what the deal was with that game, why they printed so few, or if they will ever do so, or why they wouldn't, I don't know. But another print run for Devil's Cauldron would certainly make a lot of people happy, because I know there are a ton of people out there that want to get their mittens on this game, but that's like over a month's rent for some people. And wow, you just can't justify something like that for a game, or you can, but either way, they could run another print of that and do themselves a favor, as well as fans of Adam Starkweather and of the game. Number 2, Case Blue, $425. Shrink. I have a copy of Case Blue, and I'm slowly over time unpunching that as I go from scenario to scenario. Number 1, Armies of Oblivion, and that's over half a grand at $540. Is the highest somebody has paid for that. I own a copy of Armies of Oblivion. I don't believe it is punched. And again, these prices, I don't know if is this something that somebody saw on eBay and just had to have it and were willing to pay whatever it took. I don't know. That these prices seem crazy, but if you're an investor and have these games, that is good for you / us. And I would advise anybody to remember the game investor's aphorism: when it's new, buy 2, because there is a good chance that these games are going to be sought after eventually, and they're not going to be around. So if you want to play it, you have your own copy, and then you just let the other copy sit and appreciate. Kind of fun to watch. In the news, MMP updated their blogs, and I'm not going to pat myself on the back and say I was the cause of that, because I did mention something along the lines of how neglected those blogs were. Maybe they just got around to doing it, and that was that. So, and I'm sure there's plenty of you out there that have already read this and are already aware of this, but you're going to hear it again. And for those of you that hadn't heard, well, you're going to hear it for the first time. But they updated some of their blogs, and Ken in particular talks about decision at else. And I've already mentioned that in a past show, but goes on to say that towards the end of projects like this, he gets, quote, a little burnout, end quote, and I can see that, yeah. The good news being that what usually gets him cranked up again is a new project. So he's been putting together this really big Normandy project and says that it's really cool. So, really big Normandy project. That perks my interest, as well it might do the same to you. It's got 6 total maps that do not all link together, and a strategic map, likely going to be in 2 modules, and the maps will cover the area around Saint-Mary-Glisse, which will consist of 3 maps, La Fière and Amfreville, which will comprise 2 maps, Chiffre du Pont, Chandel's Mill, 1 map, and if it can be figured out, the Millets area will be added as well. And if you know anything about the 82nd Airborne experience, Millet and troops were dropped past Amfreville, and they couldn't do too much, but there's always the what if aspect. So Most likely, the first module will cover the San Mariglis battles. They've got about 12 scenarios designed in one campaign game. And the campaign game will cover the attack of the 695th Georgian Battalion, as well as the attack towards San Mariglis. So, the map's layout covering Neuville, Oplace, Saint-Marie, Glisse, Fauville. The airborne must hold out in San Mariglis until the reinforcements from the beach come, and has a potential for 8 campaign game dates. Many of the standalone scenarios include the old paratrooper scenarios reimagined in historical format. There will also be several new designs so that there is fresh material also. They're also trying to work out a combined campaign game using strategic points so that there can be a simultaneous interaction amongst all the map sets, those being Saint Mariglis, Le Fier, and Chef du Pont, none of which link together, and a strategic map that allows off-board movement so that you as the commander can determine the focus. The strategic campaign will include 15 possible dates. Now, when he says strategic points, uh, was there not something like that in Red Barricades, or is there not something like that that will be in Red October? Either way, it's expected that Chaz will have it out for playtest as soon as he finishes vassalizing the maps. So let's hope he vassalizes the maps in quick fashion. Perry says that Action Pack 9, which focuses on the 1942 Japanese invasion of Burma through the disaster at the Shitang Bridge in February of 42, will feature 3 new 11 by 16 maps. And this is intended as the first of 3 planned action packs covering the campaign from the Japanese invasion to the Allied liberation by the team of Gary Fortenberry and Charlie Keebler. It includes 10 scenarios, most of tournament length, on novel map configurations. And I have recently seen the cover of Action Pack 9, which is a sexy cover. Or maybe that's the wrong word. It's an eye-catching cover. I like it. Decision at Else is expected to debut at Winter Offensive. And also, MMP Wants You. That's right, a call for playtesters for the Normandy project. If interested, contact Chaz at chaz.argent@gmail.net. And it goes on to say that many are called but few are chosen. What else? Playtesting is almost complete for Action Pack 10, which we expect to go up for pre-order shortly after Winter Offensive. Action Pack 10 is intended to include 2 standard 8x22 ASL maps that can be used individually or as a double-wide pair, and 8 scenarios. There is no theme to this action pack, and actions include a mix of East Front, European theater or Eastern theater operations, and Pacific theater operations that feature the new boards. European theater, sorry. A Lincoln's War is shipping to Kickstarter supporters and should be ready for internet sales in December. This is John Poniski's card-driven strategic game on the politics and personalities of the war, which would make a great last-minute Christmas gift for Grandma. Early Kickstarter supporters can expect to have this by Thanksgiving. And then up after that will be Last Chance for Victory, which is Dean Essig's new game on Gettysburg, using the line of battle rules that debuted with his None But Heroes game on Antietam. And I have looked at that None But Heroes game and came close to pulling the trigger, but have not done so yet. 4 maps covering the 4 quadrants of the battlefield, with 2 more maps covering selected areas to allow for 1 map scenarios. 22 scenarios, 2,240 counters, a game-specific rulebook, and the updated Line of Battle Series version 2.0 rulebook. Finally, don't forget about MMP's Black Friday sale. A chance to get someone you love something nice. Then Shenandoah Studio has their Drive on Moscow out now for iPad. Apparently the map changes to reflect the winter weather as the game progresses, which is very cool. And this is, I think, similar to the Battle of the Bulge game they did, but bigger in scope. And hopefully the iPhone version comes out soon, because not all of us have an iPad, but some of us have an iPhone. So let's cross our fingers an iPhone version comes out, because I plan on pulling the trigger on Drive on Moscow. New from Strategy and Tactics Press, World at War issue number 33, featuring the game Operation Shingle, the Anzio Beachhead, Picket Duty, kamikaze attacks against U.S. destroyers destroyers Okinawa. 45 shipping now, pre-order ending soon. BCT Commander Kandahar now available. That is Brigade Combat Team. Kandahar is an operational level war game of operations in Afghanistan during the current war on terror. One player takes the role of a coalition force commander, the other the role of an insurgent force commander. Each player must accomplish objectives within a particular region using a range of regular and irregular forces. And Avalanche Press, I don't know if anybody is going to be interested in this, but somebody's buying the stuff. Avalanche Press has 50 books and boxed games at great prices. These items won't be offered at a discount again this year, so hurry and get up to 75% off selected items. Then for reviews, I've been checking out this game called Battle of the Bulge Cells, and there are a ton of Battle of the Bulge games out there. There will continue to be a ton of Battle of Bulge games that get made, and one might ask, at what point do you stop making them, because there's just so many of them? And, well, you stop making them when you no longer present a product that has a somewhat original approach, and this has done just that. Designed by Roger Miller in 2012 and published by Revolution Games, they have a number of other games out. Cells is a fast-moving simulation of the fighting at the high water mark of the German Ardennes offensive. The Germans are advancing towards the Meuse River and are running out of fuel and time to force a desperate crossing to achieve Hitler's goal of ultimate victory. The Allied forces are both trying to block the German advance and begin a counteroffensive to destroy the German panzer divisions. Low counter density, but the gears and levers that comprise the mechanics of this game more than make up for it. And let's see, there are some reviews up on YouTube regarding this game. There's a nice two-part video review by Revolution Games and one by Marco Wargamer, that is. So anybody that is curious, please check those out. There's alternating random activation by formation. Provides players with uncertainty and excitement. Each turn, players receive a varying number of activations. Not all formations may move, and some may move more than once. To represent fuel shortages, aggressive generalship, command uncertainty, and piecemeal reinforcements that provide players with a rich historical feel. After units move, strengths are reduced to simulate fatigue and lack of defensive preparation. This is a game for players who love to counterattack. And the map, it really does look gorgeous. And I don't know if it's a winter thing with me. I have a winter fetish, but this map, wow. Just take a look at it for yourself. It's a chit pull mechanic, which I'm a big fan of, as I play most of my games, if not all, by myself. And it has a high solitaire rating. The map is 22 by 17 with 88 counters. And again, you're going to think something is wrong because there are not a lot of counters. This game is austere in that department. But do you always need a full grand steak dinner on your table? No, you don't. And this is a good alternative to the thick, deep, counter-rich war games. And 12 pages of rules, so something that could be played possibly in an evening, if not definitely in a weekend, more than once. Let's see, as I mentioned briefly, Guderian's Blitzkrieg is off the table. Uh, I was playing the initial scenario, which comprised a map C in October, and what should have been a blowout for the Russians turned into a whimper in the second turn, which is going to allow me to get into the next section here. But during this particular turn, which was 5th of October, 41, other than a mostly strategic withdrawal east, minus a desperate pocket near Serra de Neve Buda, the Russians gear up for a major strike. 8 hexes outside of Bryansk. And after successfully disorganizing a juicy German stack via air barrage, I, as the Russians, geared up for the ground assault. Now, I had 3 adjacent hexes of mostly Russian infantry, equaling roughly a strength of about 70, versus this German stack with a strength of about 13, which gave a 5 to 1 odds. Problem was, the highest Russian action rating was a 2, while the Germans had a 4. And for those of you not familiar with OCS, every counter has an action rating which represents abstractly troop quality, among other things. And when you're rolling on the combat results table, you take the difference between each side's action rating and either add or subtract to the die roll. So also you roll for surprise, and the Germans won surprise. So I roll another die and adjust my 5 to 1 odds column. It could shift to 2 to 1 thanks to the Germans catching the Russians off guard, and roll the dice. Well, the result was the Russians lose a step and must retreat while the Germans are unaffected. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. Because here, like I said, was supposed to be a blowout. This stack of counters should have been blown off the map and been laying all over the floor when I was done. But no, didn't happen that way, and couldn't believe it. But then I got to thinking again, and that's about right. Because very rarely do you have battles where a side is destroyed to the last man. And yeah, I would have liked to see something happen, and there's something to be said for that as well. Sometimes things don't happen, and you expect them to. So it's just the nature of the game, the nature of warfare, and just because you are confident in a strike doesn't mean it's going to turn out that way. So brief dose of reality there for me, and that led me into. I thought I would go into the history of the combat results table within Wargames. And I had some help with this, namely by a guy named Chuck, and he has a site called chuckgame.blogspot.com, and he goes into this a little bit, and I pulled some things from it. Hope Chuck doesn't mind. But sometime in the early to mid 1800s, Herr von Reiswitz, the Prussian war counselor at Breslau. And if you want to know more, I've gone into this war game history before, here and there. But if you want to know more on your own, I recommend a book called The Art of Wargaming by Peter Perla from 1990, Naval Institute Press. And there should be a significant number of things in there that you can read about at your leisure regarding the history of this. But the Prussian war counselor at Breslau, Mr. Reiswitz, came up with a Kriegspiel or war game, and to determine the outcome of combat, an umpire was provided with tables listing a number of outcomes based on range and other factors, and a dice roll determined the exact outcome. Thus was born the combat results table. Now, most combat results tables have their results predicated on the fact that to have any hope of success, an attacker needs at least 3 to 1 odds. And during the early days, results consisted of primarily eliminate, retreat, or exchange, and that was about it. But over time, you have these half units that pop up on the scene, and basically this means that no matter how bad a unit performs in combat, it was at least guaranteed to fight another day. And eventually, we begin to see results that affect both the attacker and the defender. So, combat results table starts out fairly simple and starts to grow a little bit. And when you get to Panzer Blitz in 1970, they attempted to work in morale, which is fantastic because you got to have that in there somewhere. They work in morale and disruption in their combat results table, meaning units could be eliminated or disrupted, and because of its tactical scale, range was also worked in. So, additionally, each weapon system was a different class weapon. They deal with armor piercing, high explosive, or infantry in that game. And each unit type was a different class target, either armored, soft, or infantry. So, depending on how these weapon and target classes interacted, would determine if there was a modifier to the attack strength. And terrain effects are eventually worked into the combat results table in games, and that's handled typically through column shifts. Also, during another interesting thing that I found was that during the play-by-mail heyday before the internet, a combat results table was needed that could be consulted by both sides and based on an unpredictable number. The answer was the stock listings in the newspaper, of all things, and players would agree on a newspaper and would consult. Then, when they completed a turn, there would be an agreed upon sequence of order that the combats would be resolved in, and there would be an agreed upon stock listing that would be the beginning of the combat. Each die roll required would be based on the final digit in a stock price. And this gave a sequence of numbers from 1 to 10, but then this required a combat results table that was keyed to the random factors being 1 to 10 rather than 1 to 6, which isn't necessarily a problem. But I thought that was kind of interesting that they used the stock prices as their dice rolls. If we examine the range of results throughout some old school games, which I have done for you, and take an average 1 die 6 result of 3 and look at just the 3 to 1 odds column, get some interesting things. Basically, if we start with Panzerkrieg, you get a D2 result, which means the defender will retreat 2 hexes. Panzer Group Guderian has a D1 result, which means the defender may retreat 1 hex or lose 1 step. And additionally, all Soviets are 1 step, so a unit would be eliminated, Soviet unit, unlike a German Panzer mechanized or motorized unit. And also cavalry, which are 2 steps. So France 1940 has a CA result, which is counterattack, and they deal with that by suggesting all participating defending units must counterattack 1 participating attacking unit, and the defender then computes the odds as if he were the attacker. Got about 3 or 4 more here. A Fire in the East has a HX result, which is half exchange, and they deal with it as such. The side with the lower combat strength, or defender, if both sides are equal, is eliminated, and units reduced to cadres must retreat. The other player must then eliminate units so that his total strength loss at least equals 1/2 the total strength loss of his opponent. So I thought that was interesting. And then White Death, Veliki Luki, the Stalingrad of the North, has an MC1 result, which means a unit must take a morale check with a die roll penalty of 1 and lose 1 strength point. So a direct way to deal with morale in a game, and I don't think anybody does it better than ASL, but here is an early nod to that. War in the East, first edition, as I do not have the second edition, sadly, or not. They have 4 separate combat results tables, all right? So the first one, the Axis uses in 1941 and 42, a non-mud snow Russians use in 1944, and 45 non-mud snow. The result is both retreat, 1 hex, and then your second combat results table deals with the Axis. We'll use this in 43 during no mud snow turns, while Russians use this in all mud and snow turns, and in 43. And their result is a AEX, which attacker must remove attacking combat strength points equal to or greater than the printed combat strength of the defending units, and the defending units are not affected. The third combat results table is used by the Axis in the 44 during non-mud snow turns, while the Russians use it in 42 non-mud snow turns, and that is an AEX, which was already explained above. And Axis in the fourth and final combat results table, the Axis used this in all mud and snow turns in 45, and the Russians use it in 41 during non-mud and snow turns. And again, that result is a attacker exchange. Finally, Barbarossa, game of the Russo-German War 41-45, a game that I just ordered and got in. I've glanced through that and checked out the rules and stuff, and they've got printed on the map 6 different combat results tables, and that boils down to 1 for each weather condition. So depending on the weather, you use a certain combat results table. That seems kind of convoluted. Maybe not. It may work out pretty nice. That remains to be seen. I haven't played it though. And then of course you got some charts nowadays, and I go into 2 in particular. I'll give you one guess as to what they are. The combat results table has reached, I think, its apex with OCS, because in the operational category, in this category, you have the terrain within a defender's hex really determines which row to use, and this includes open, close, very close, and extremely close. So depending on what terrain you're in determines which column you use. And additionally, you can have specific anti-tank effects that affect your combat results table. Then you figure in action rating, which I went into earlier, and surprise, which I went into as well. And you're left with just an overall great and rounded out combat results table, in my opinion, which I don't know if it amounts to much really at the end of the day. And the combat results table includes options so that oftentimes a retreat may be scratched in place of a step loss, and other results include disorganized and exploitation. And then when you talk about tactical games, well, come on, you got to give it to ASL. It's all about the morale check, which dovetails with the whole leader system in that game. And your squad leaders are vital, really, in this game when it comes to rallying units that have broken as a result of morale checks. So there is your combat results tables. And what else? We've got, I said I'd go into board game conventions. And why don't I do that to an extent? I'm not going to scour the stuff that's out there, but Winter Offensive, I already went into before. That's a ASL related event. And then of course you have ASLOC, which is a ASL Oktoberfest, if you will. And that is October 6th through the 13th, or at least it was this year. And they do that every year. Then there is the World Board Gaming Championship. Now this was originally the Avalon Con back in the day, and started by Don Greenwood in '91, and turned into the World Board Gaming Championships, which is held was held yearly since '99 by the Board Game Players Association, and typically held in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It was last held 28th of July to August 3rd of this year, and is next scheduled for August 4th through the 10th. So this is the convention that replaced Avalon Con, and which was run from '91 to '98 by Avalon Hill. And each year, the convention polls about 1,500 people from around the world to compete to be named a champion of their favorite games. By vote, BPA members select the 100 or so games. These are known as the Century Group, in which competitions are scheduled, and it's not necessary to be invited, and you don't have to be an expert player to compete in these tournaments. Just show up. If you have an interest in a game, you can hop right in, and many events include scheduled demonstrations that even explain the rules. So if there's a game maybe you don't know how to play and you're interested in, you will certainly have an opportunity to play it. Consim World Expo, featuring monstergame.con, will be held May 25th through the 31st, 2014, at the Tempe Mission Palms in beautiful Tempe, Arizona. Is it beautiful, really? I don't know. I haven't been there. I'll have to take their word for it. They also offer an early start time. Gaming doors will open Saturday morning, May 24th. Registration begins January. For a taste of what it's like, I would highly recommend Jason Young's video he did on it. Of course, being Jason from Advance After Combat, he takes a little car ride to Consim World Expo 2013 and takes footage of some of the games. I think there's a big Devil's Cauldron game set up that he plays in, and goes over some of the booty that he brought back with him, some games, and so give that. And I'm sure there's other videos as well on any of these that people have taken that you could watch and get a taste of what it's like. There's Board Game Geek Con that apparently is held November 20th through the 24th in Texas. So you just missed it, or you just got back. And it has open board gaming, game library with over 3,500 games, plus the latest Essen releases. There's a Texas Hold'em tournament, a game show, a puzzle hunt, for God's sakes. Why? Battle and Tops. I'm not even sure if I want to know what that is. Prizes, a flea market, and vendors. So there's that. Then you got everybody's favorite Gen Con, which is the largest, bills itself as the largest tabletop game convention in North America by attendance and events. And it features traditional pen and paper, board and card games, including role-playing games, miniatures, war games, board games, live action role-playing games, collectible card games, non-collectible card games, and strategy games. And also features computer games of all things. 49,000 people showed up for this last one, so big event. And Gen Con was established in '68 as a war games convention held by Gary Gygax. May ring a bell. The designer of Dungeons and Dragons, and it was first held in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, before moving to Milwaukee. Gen Con became the property of TSR, the gaming company founded by Gygax in '76, and in '97, TSR and Gen Con, for that matter, were acquired by Wizards of the Coast, which was subsequently acquired by Hasbro. And Hasbro has sold Gen Con to the founder and former CEO of Wizards of the Coast, Peter Adkison. Did that in 2002. And of course, the con is now held in Indianapolis, Indiana. Then that leaves Origins, which got its start in '75 with a gathering of game players in Baltimore, Maryland. The Interest Group Baltimore, a local wargaming club, worked with the Baltimore-based Avalon Hill Games Company to put on the first show that year at Johns Hopkins University. And in a nod to Baltimore's position as the home of Avalon Hill and the birthplace of the commercial wargame hobby, Mr. Greenwood, a game designer with Avalon Hill, as you may or may not know, well, you should know by now, and founder of the convention, suggested calling the show Origins. And over the next few years, both Avalon Hill and SPI ran the show. As the show continued expanding, the Game Manufacturers Association assumed management in '78, and used to be where the Charles S. Roberts Awards were presented, but are now revealed at the World Board Gaming Championship. So there is a run of some of them, and that gives me an idea. I wouldn't mind going into the Charles S. Roberts Awards and give maybe a rundown of some of the winners over the years, and you guys can make a comparison of how many of the winners you own and how many of the winners you do not. Where are we at now with that? That puts us at under an hour, and I wanted to keep this episode somewhat shorter than the others. Why? I'm not exactly sure. Maybe just to give you a break. Give me a break. Not make it run so long and drag on, and do a longer episode next time as well. I may not be posting a one within a week. I might wait a little longer this time. I've got some things going on that I need to focus on, and we'll see how it goes. But I have a lot of things on tap for future shows, and of course next episode we'll have the top 10 list, or a top 10 list, news and reviews. And I don't know if I'll go into it this episode or the next one, but I want to do something regarding Finland and the Finns, and call that a fight to the finish, and go into the war that they fought against Russia in '39. And I even have all the notes for that already, history-wise. And then go into what are some of the key games that deal with Finland, and what are some of the unique attributes that Finns have in war games over other infantry. And I'd like to go into chit pull games at some point, share some of my favorites. And of course, Napoleonics, got to get into that. I've got to bust into that in a big way, and yeah, just dive right in and start dealing with that, because that is a subject that has interested me for a long time, and I have a lot to say about it. Lucky you, right? So, deal with Napoleon going into Russia, and go into depth with the game Napoleon's Triumph. And as you may or may not know, Bowen Simmons on his site has a design diary for that game, and it is a really cool look at the birth and development of a game, and a wonderful game at that. So go into that, and go into Pockets, and come up with some cheesy, clever name for that. And when I say Pockets, I'm of course referring to the pockets in the East Front in the latter part of the war that the Germans tended to find themselves in. Stalingrad pocket, Korsun pocket, among others. And talk about that, and of course go into some of the games that recreate those pockets. And I think that wraps it up. So, a brief episode in contrast to the ones that have come before this. But hey, that's alright, and nothing wrong with class being dismissed early. So as usual, I appreciate everyone listening, and I apologize. I hope I haven't raced through too quickly for you. Don't eat too much turkey. Be careful driving if you're traveling. And keep gaming. got to be kidding me.